Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle news update. Calum Van Moger, I got to talk about him. You know, I've been seeing videos. You know, I'm actually enjoying some of the videos on his site at his own expense, of course, because this guy's a super risk taker. If you remember a couple weeks ago, he was trying to rappel down the side of a mountain, a cliff basically, and he retore his bicep that he had torn at Gold's Gym in Venice, you know, a few weeks or 2 months before that, and he tore his quad muscle. I believe it was a quad tear. And so now, and the funny thing is he tore the same quad I did, the right quad. So I see him now, 4 weeks after surgery, okay, getting into his car to drive. Now, I gotta just tell you something. I've had a lot of quad surgeries. It's been like, it took me, I think, before I got into a car, I want to say something like 3 months or something like that before. Now, here's the reason. Number one, you can't bend your leg. And think about when you drive. When you drive, you have to be able to bend your leg so that you can lift your foot off the gas and onto the brake, right? You can't do that straight-legged. He probably only has about 30 degrees of bend. He even says it in the video. So he's just barely getting himself into the car, which is putting his quad in a very, very awkward, strained position, okay? A tendon that's certainly not knitted yet and that has not permanently anchored itself. It's just starting to. I wasn't even able to, they didn't even want me moving it for 6 weeks, my quad. He's obviously moving a little bit. Now, he's obviously driving with his toes, basically. You know, that's the only way you could really do it. You really can't exert force on those pedals right after a quad surgery because you could re-rupture the quad. This guy's driving around town. Now, everything's great when you don't have to really react or do anything. But if, let's say, a car in front of him slammed their brakes on and he had to slam his foot on the brake, he probably would re-rupture the quadricep muscle. Hasn't happened yet. I hope it doesn't happen because he seems like a nice guy and I don't want to see anyone in pain or suffering. But once again, super high risk activity. You don't want to have to undergo another quad repair. I mean, that's like a nightmare. Believe me, I've done 3 of them already. And I wasn't even doing any. I was listening to doctor's orders and mine re-ruptured. Now, you know, he's a young guy, he probably has better tissues than I have in there, and his healing capacity is probably better. But that doesn't mean that if something happens while he's driving, he can't respond. Matter of fact, the guy who's in there filming him, I think he's crazy sitting in the passenger seat because if God forbid they did have to stop short and his quad re-ruptured and they couldn't stop the car, the guy in the passenger seat is going to be the dead one, not Calum, because he'll get hit with the airbag. So high risk activity has not ceased, obviously, after this latest cliff extravaganza that he had where he tore that quad and it re-ruptured his bicep. Now, to make matters worse, I saw him 4 weeks, once again, 4 weeks after his surgery, doing bench presses, okay? Now, I figured, all right, he's doing the bar, which is kind of stupid, I think, still, because he's got the bicep, you know, that has been torn twice now. He's doing the bar, he's bench pressing, and then all of a sudden I see him, he's got a 45-pound plate and he's bench pressing, like with his elbows in, tucked in, and he's pushing, and his girlfriend's sitting on top of the 45-pound plate, which is super entertaining for people watching it. But, you know, now you're having to stabilize this plate with a girl on it. That's a lot of weight, you know. And this guy just had her bicep repair. Now, granted, pushing movements really don't work the bicep, but when you have to stabilize, that absolutely involves bicep, okay? And here's the guy who already popped the bicep twice. I don't know why he's doing these high-risk activities. I can't figure it out. I cannot. The only thing I can say is that he's just not that bright. I don't know. And he looks like a smart dude. So I don't know. I think he's just like likes to roll the dice. I don't get it. You know, he's jeopardizing, you know, delaying even more. Because if he re-ruptures, every time you injure a muscle and re-rupture a muscle, okay, the risk factors of the surgery, of the surgical repair go way up exponentially. You know, I've talked to physicians, you know, before. The first repair is always the easiest. Once you have to do revisions because of scar tissue buildup and other complications, things can go wrong, you know, and can permanently, you know, prevent you from ever regaining, you know, normal strength. You're never gonna have normal muscle tone and strength anyway, okay, when you get a repair done. But the more times you redo it, the worse that becomes. And that's why my personal quad has gotten worse because I've had 3 surgical repairs on it. But who wants to even go through it again? Why can't you just relax for 3 months and heal up and then come back and go back to doing your kooky stuff if you want to? I don't get it. I don't get it. I understand you have a popular YouTube channel and people want to see and they want to be entertained. But you know what? While you're injured, you could do other things to entertain them. You could snort pre-workout through your nose if you want. You could stand on, well, don't do anything physical. Do kooky stuff like, cook food or make exotic dishes. If you want to go eat cockroaches in Thailand or something like that. That's stuff that people will be entertained by without you having to risk yourself getting injured. I don't understand why he's doing this. He's got a future. He's got a good look. He's got a personality. He obviously has people that like to watch him and see what he does. But don't be the guy don't become like that movie Jackass where these people want to see you get hurt. Because that's not fun, and that's gonna, later in your life, trust me, when you get into your 40s and 50s, you're gonna be sorry you did all these crazy things, I'm telling you. Not to mention that, you can get killed doing some of these things, that you're doing. Jumping off sides of cliffs and stuff like that. I don't get it. I guess maybe I'm getting old, but you know what? At the same time, I was always very cognizant of the fact that I had a plan in my head and I wanted to achieve certain things, and I would never do silly things to sabotage, my goals. And I don't really know. Maybe Calum's got different goals than we think. Maybe he just wants to be an entertainer and he doesn't really give a crap if his physique is Mr. Olympia quality or caliber or not. So, Calum, just telling you out there, be smart, wise up, stop doing such crazy stuff, please. It makes me nervous to watch you out there, to be honest with you. But if you'd like to talk, I'd love to interview you and find out exactly what's going on in your mind and what your game plan is, and I think our viewership would love it too. So contact me if you'd like me to interview you. If not, you could just tell me I'll go scratch your ass, Dave, because it's happened before. Plenty of people have said that before. Anyway, Dave Palumbo here with the Calum Van Moger RX Muscle News Update.